My FJ Cruiser, it cannot be defined. A simulation of a manly design. FJ Cruiser Simulacra.
The 2012 Toyota FJ Cruiser is a throwback to the Toyota FJ40 Land Cruisers of the 1960s, which were built on the Land Cruiser Prado platform. The modern FJ Cruiser runs on a 4.0-liter 1GR FE V6 with a 6-speed manual for the 4-wheel drive and a 5-speed automatic for all other models. This particular FJ has a fake Hurst shifter, along with a 3-inch lift kit, CB antenna, clutch start cancel button, and another button to disable the side curtain airbags. Because if you're in an accident while you're driving this, the other guy is the one who's dying. And of course, we're driving a car like this on roads like these. This is the worst possible choice for the mountain roads outside Boulder, Colorado. But we gotta make it work. You see, this was Japan's answer to the Hummer. The FJ Cruiser is a criticism of American excess, aimed at serving up a better version of something North America didn't really need in the first place. Were we really experiencing a lack of gas guzzlers? Do we need 9.5 inches of ground clearance? Is there nothing else vacationing doctors can use to tow their jet skis these days? I'm gonna wipe my ass with your cat. The FJ Cruiser was first made available in 2006 after popular demand at the North American International Auto Show forced Toyota's hand. The first year availability, Toyota sold 56,225 of these things in the United States. But 6 years later, in 2012, you want to know how many they sold? 13,656. It's quite a drop. Alright, it's not that bad, but it does speak to a larger decline in the enthusiasm for this kind of vehicle. The FJ Cruiser went from being an SUV with broad appeal to a car with a very specific niche market. Portable listening devices have gotten smaller and less bulky over time in accordance with the demand of the market, because people hate bulky technology more than Reddit hates. But by its very nature, the FJ can't get any sleeker or slimmer than it is already. So in a world with shrinking cars, the FJ is monolithic. I'm not going to call this a bro car, but the FJ gives off an unmistakably masculine aura that puts you in one of several categories. Number 1, a guy who puts muscle milk in his cereal and blends Quest bars and protein powder to make a hulking, penis-engorging formula that's thicker between the bad blood with Palestine and Israel. Number 2, a guy who hoards evaporated milk, AA batteries, and 1,000 rounds for his Mosin Nagant for the zombie apocalypse. Number 3, a social justice warrior who co-opts a minority's right to be offended. Or number 4, all of the above, minus the guy with the conscript's rifle. If you're going to buy an FJ, you have to decide ahead of time whether or not the off-road performance, masculine aesthetic, and top-of-the-class ground clearance are worth the crummy gas mileage, dodgy visibility, and a design that screams plastic everywhere. On the one hand, the engine is alright, and it makes 270 horsepower, which is average. Folks, I have to level with you here. Regular Cars has become the channel that occasionally profiles a car. Sometimes we take a car and work backwards and really dig into the sociology of who drives a certain car and why. But this, this was a challenge. The FJ Cruiser is a 4-wheeled representation of what Bro Drillard called simulation versus simulacra. And I'm pronouncing simulacra using the British pronunciation because of Le Mans. See, a simulation is exactly what it sounds like. It's a representation of the genuine article, a representation of the real. Here. But a simulacra is a representation of something that either had no reality to begin with or something whose original doesn't exist anymore. Your bartender is a simulation of a therapist, and a barista is a simulation of a bartender. In both cases, it's someone you hope won't judge you for the choices that you made that brought you to them. Put more plainly, a simulation is like a fire drill, or a video game, or a pro wrestling match. It has the appearance of the same danger as the real thing it's simulating, but, and this bit's important, but a simulacra is being plugged into the matrix and trying to distinguish between realities. Which one is the danger and which one is the simulation of the danger? Okay, I put it in car terms. An Icon Bronco is a simulacra. A derelict made by the same guy is also a simulacra. Like a Bronco, like an Icon Bronco, there's no history behind that. That car never existed. It's a simulacra. It's a representation of a Ford Bronco that had no reality to begin with. I mean, a Bronco like that never existed, but here it is. So it's not really a simulation. It's something that has no past. And so it comes back to the FJ Cruiser. It looks like a masculine car for a suburban guy that's trying to make ends meet. But the design of the car, the plastic interior and the bulky exterior, and almost everything about it has a stench of rose water and yes, dear. The FJ Cruiser is modern masculinity as filtered through the crucible of misunderstanding. This is what modern man appears to be like, but it's hard to remember a time when this was ever the case. The FJ Cruiser is a simulation of suburban masculinity, but it's also a simulacra because it's hard to imagine this kind of undefinable guy exists. Did a real masculine guy who would drive this car, who would need this car, really exist? Find me a guy who is simultaneously comfortable in his masculinity, but is also constantly making up for his inadequacy. I'm even speaking slower and in a different cadence than I normally do in these reviews. That's why this is so weird. The FJ Cruiser doesn't make much sense, but it exists. It exists to a greater sense than the Pontiac Aztek existed. I mean, that was a flop, but the FJ Cruiser, at least on the books, was a success, right? And so it is with the car itself. The FJ is a homage to the FJ40 Land Cruisers of the 1960s, but because nothing like those FJ40s exist any longer, what you're looking at here is both a simulacra and a simulation. It's simultaneously original and derivative, like memories that depreciate each time you remember them, because you're not remembering the memory itself. You're just remembering the last time you remembered it. Thanks.
It's not a Jeep. It's not a Prado. What's your favorite imported beer? Let's put a keg here. FJ, what's with the 3-inch lift? You don't need suspension kits. Damn, this car's almost 9 years old. It's not old, but it's making me feel old. FJ, do you even notice that you're not a Prado? I promise it's okay though. Kinda like an old Hilux, except really not so much. Without those cars, would you be here? Either way, would you even care? This Toyota FJ Cruiser kinda feels like a gun when it's cocked and loaded, but the trigger is jammed and the stock explodes. Not sure what I'm really trying to say. I guess that's the problem with reviewing FJs. Kinda wish this car were mine as well, along with Gianna Michaels. She's fine as hell.